Okay, we're going to get the meeting started, but before we start, I want to read you something. As many of you know, yesterday we lost a leader within the Casper Police Department. Lieutenant Danny Dundas was born here in Casper, Wyoming. He was a graduate of Natrona County High School and attended the University of Wyoming on a full-ride academic scholarship, graduating in 2008 with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and psychology. Lieutenant Dundas began his career as a Casper police officer in 2008, graduating the top of his class and receiving awards for the highest fitness and highest academic levels in the class. Throughout his career, Lieutenant Dundas held many positions within the department and worked his way up the ranks. In the spring of 2019, he graduated from Northwestern University School for Police Staff and Command, which is a very prestigious leadership for command staff members of police departments. In his career, Lieutenant Dundas has been awarded numerous certificates of commendation, Letter of Merit, Life-Saving Medal, Distinguished Service Medal, the Police Service Cross with Combat Distinction, and Unit Commendation Awards. I personally know the impact Lieutenant Dundas has had within the Casper Police Department, our community as a whole, and law enforcement agencies around the state and outside our borders. As we all grieve this tremendous loss, let us also remember the humorous and energetic Danny Dundas we all knew and loved. He would want it to be that way. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. City Manager, any council follow-up?
Mr. Mayor, outside of what we have on the agenda this evening, I would say we do not have any other follow-up.
Okay. We'll move into the Film Commission event policy. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. We have the opportunity to consider a new approach here in our community, or at least a rejuvenated approach, if you will, wherein the possibility exists pursuant to some legislation potentially that would be facilitative of this idea to work with agencies throughout the county in order to position our area for attraction of film events and production opportunities that take place here in Natrona County. In order to appropriately do that, however, there may be a couple things that the council would want to have staff participate in order to get that effort off the ground. And so as a part of that, we asked our partner agency to come forward and walk us through what those things might be and what it is that staff may need to be dedicated to some time to deal with and participate in. We do have some representatives this evening from Visit Casper who are bringing these ideas forward and inviting our participation, and with their information they present to us this evening, I would certainly recommend that any questions you have, please feel free to tender those and see what information we can gather tonight, in that you may want to give staff direction to move forward, and if that is the case, internally, what staff probably ought to work on is some level of an event policy oriented toward this industry, so that indeed, should these things come forward, we will be ready and streamlined and in a better position to accommodate these kinds of events that I think could be very productive for our community potentially. So with that, Mr. Mayor, if I could defer to Visit Casper, I'd be pleased to do so.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, congratulations to Councilwoman Quest. Welcome to the council. I am not here to ask for money tonight, contrary to popular belief, so it'll be a nice change of pace for me standing in front of you. Mr. City Manager did a good job of teeing this up. Also tonight on Zoom, I have Kelly Estes, who Visit Casper has retained as a contractor to work on the film initiative. I do want to take a minute and tee this up. So this is stemming from, for the last several years, there has not been a real appetite in the state legislature to have a budget footnote tied to film. So what happened in January of 2021 is that the statewide lodging tax went into effect. Well, many of you know the tourism economy, especially through COVID, is very robust. So collections of the statewide lodging tax are far surpassing what that agency thought they would be, to the tune of $5 or $6 million. So one of the things that they're in discussion about is, could we then reinstitute the film incentive program? So that is really what the State Office of Tourism is working with the legislature on. It has been through a committee. I know that Representative Sweeney is here as well. Some of our local constituents or our local representatives have said, you know, as long as it's not something that's funded with taxpayer dollars, but it's funded through the Office of Tourism, that's something they'd be amenable to. So the reason I stand here tonight is that we want to align our efforts with the Wyoming Office of Tourism. So it's not necessarily a formal ask, anything outside of staff time, but what we are looking for is some resources to be able to help streamline the permitting process. So many of you were here when street outlaws came to our community. So originally that started on the county side. It ended up, typically it would have gone through planning and zoning, which would have been a 30-day process, and then it would have come to the commission, so we're 60 days out. For that project, the commission did fast track it, but it wasn't without some challenges, right, and some noise, and then they ended up coming to the city for some things. So I think if we work proactively, we'll be able to permit or offer a permitting process that is streamlined and is more efficient, and we would be easily then able to say yay or nay to a project if it's a fit for our area. So I'm asking for this on the county side as well, but what I'm really looking for are resources from staff to just explore what it would look like if we were going to make this process easier. So Kelly, I would say, I don't know if we can hear you or if there's a button we have to push, but if you have something you want to add, I know we've had 2 people inquire in the last 10 days about bringing a project to Natrona County.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and address that since it's bad news at this point, but hopefully it'll be better news as we go forward. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for letting us come and speak to you today, and we're sorry for the loss of Lieutenant Dundas. That's a horrible tragedy for the entire community. We're sorry about that. So one of the projects that we just lost over the weekend was a prequel to the series, TV show series Yellowstone. They're going to be shooting out near Independence Rock and out Devil's Gate. They ended up, primarily because of the incentive program not being in existence in Wyoming, they loved the locations. They still might come grab some shots of the locations, but they went to Montana because that's where an incentive is available. We've got another program that it's kind of been put off until the first part of the summer. We hope the incentive will be in place to help then. But we're just continually, it seems like we get requests fairly often, but it's hard for us to fill the request and get people set up to do the projects because the incentives don't make us, the lack of incentives don't make us competitive. And a little bit on my history for the council is, back when Starship Troopers came to the county in '96, I was running the county parks department, and of course they were going to film at one of the county parks. So we ended up working a year with them. The county commissioners really liked the economic impact that came from it because it was over a $4 million direct spend into the community at that point. And they went ahead and had me start a film office back then. And I serviced many projects over the course of that, probably, well, it was about 7 years before I went to work at the school district. I just recently left the school district, and I've been pestering Ms. Kaufman for quite some time about getting this going again. So we've done some other projects over the years, and we just hope to continue to build on this. That's kind of my statement.
So just quickly to wrap this up and then have a formal request, and thank you, Kelly, I appreciate that. So 2 things is, 1, we would be looking for confirmation of staff support so that we can explore this, and then 2, down the road, one of the things that we would be interested in is potentially a resolution or a formal action on both the city and the county side establishing Film Casper as the official authority or the film agency in our county. What that does is it allows us to join international associations so that we can further generate networking contacts and leads. So that piece is important, but we don't need to solve for that today. So with that, Mayor and Council, I would stand for questions.
Any questions? Councilwoman Ingebrigtsen.
So I'm assuming that you're just trying to lay the groundwork in anticipation that the legislature is going to try to pass something so that we can get some of these coming through there, or it's, because from my understanding, the legislature, because of the fees and stuff, is why we just really can't have the films and things like that here. Is that correct?
So Councilwoman, that's a great question. We actually are successful at getting some projects. So Street Outlaws did not get tax incentives from the Office of Tourism, but they do require support. So they're looking for lodging, they're looking for places to park their trailers, activities for the people who come to our community. So those are services that we typically provide through Visit Casper anyway, and we'll continue to do that. What's nice about if the Office of Tourism is successful is that then at the state level, we'll have tax incentive dollars to help fund projects somewhere in the state, hopefully in Natrona County. So I hope that answers your question.
Right, so we're not having to wait for the legislature to do what they're needing to do for us to continue to work on this, correct?
Right. We want to streamline permitting process regardless of what the legislature does.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilman Gamros.
Thank you, Brooke, for coming to speak to us tonight and for giving that presentation. I personally am on board with this. This is something I felt like the state, I think it sunsetted 5 years ago or so, and I wish we would have been doing it that whole time. CJ Box, a Wyoming-based author, I believe, is it Big Sky, that is based on his books. So that's a Montana production, I believe. And so I personally get sick of seeing Wyoming-based movies filmed in Montana and New Mexico and elsewhere. It's really frustrating. Wind River is filmed in Utah. I've talked to a lot of people that have questions about, why is this necessary, or why should we spend money on this, or what is the value of people filming here? You mentioned Street Outlaws. I believe that was like $1.9 million, $2 million economic impact here locally, and they were just here for a few weeks. There's a 2018 Casper Star Tribune article that talks about a few different things why we don't have more film, a more robust film industry here. Some of it is just lack of people, but the rest of it, it seems like this incentive program goes a long way and could help us get more projects here, and they could have tremendous impact. And so I'm personally somebody that's very interested in it, and glad to see you're taking the initiative to lead as a city, because again, the legislature doesn't appear to have the enthusiasm, I guess, to take it on. So I would love to kind of set the stage, and hopefully they can follow up after us. Thank you.
Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you. I would like to say I'm very enthusiastic about this. First of all, I think it's never a bad idea to try to look at streamlining permitting processes. So I have full support of that for this and any other area that we might like to consider doing that. But I think this is an area we hear it time and time again about a potential area for economic growth and economic development for our state, and that we continue to miss the boat on. And so I think it's relevant. I think it has a lot of potential, and I think that from the city standpoint that we should support it however we are able to do that.
Anybody else? Okay. Pat, did you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you're correct. The legislature decided to sunset the program and not refund it. So I think Brooke hit the nail on the head with the advent of the lodging tax, statewide lodging tax coming through. This allows there's about 20% that can't be used for daily operations and the rest of the projects, but special projects. And this fits perfectly into that model, along with other things that I'm sure that will occur. So at our last Travel Rec Wildlife Committee meeting, it was teed up, and will be at our last meeting to be held here in Casper, actually October, I believe it's 25th and 26th. We'll see the legislation, and I do believe we've got the votes to get it to the floor with an active bill that'll lay everything out. I applaud Visit Casper for getting this teed up and the city council to keep this momentum moving. And I was around and on the Tourism Travel Commission and then the Tourism Advisory Board when we put the first program together. And it was very effective, but not large enough. And we have lost a number of projects because of these incentives. And other states have figured it out. New Mexico has really hit it out of the park. And there's active folks in the industry in this state. And why have we lost so many projects? Whether you agree with the content, Brokeback Mountain was written for Wyoming. Nobody knew that it would win Academy Awards and be the hit that it was. But what a lost opportunity that Wyoming businesses lost out on. I benefited tremendously from both the Wells Fargo commercial shoot that was just a few years ago, and Kelly mentioned Starship Troopers. That allowed the Parkway Plaza to prop up an entire wing that had been down for years because of Starship Troopers to house that cast. So I think it's tremendously valuable. We're in the center of the state. We've got good product. We've got a great team that Brooke has put together. And I think with the state moving forward, the timing is perfect. And I truly believe street outlaws would like to come back, but we've got to be prepared. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. Pat, this is a question just for you, and and maybe I'm just poking the bear, but that's what I like to do. So I guess I don't understand the logic of the state legislature, and I know a lot of us don't, but why would they pass that and not want to? Am I setting you up?
To continue it and
Yeah.
sunset it.
Was there what was the logic, I guess, behind that?
Well, the Appropriations Committee just didn't see the value in continuing it, even though it was of value, and we didn't have a lot of things that came to the finish line, but they didn't look far enough down the road, as far as I'm concerned, as to what's out there and what other states have done with the industry, not just California. That's a whole different industry, but Montana has really been successful. But there's not a lot of logic in the legislature if you haven't figured that out. So,
Can I just have a real quick follow-up?
Absolutely.
So the only other thing I want to say, and this is more of a statement, not a question, but I just appreciate, the opportunity for us to be able to kind of have that local control to go forward, to do this, do what's in the best interest of the city and the county. And I think it's important for us to continue to look at multiple different ways to, we always talk about economic development and diversification. And when we start talking about it, nothing really ever gets done. We just like to talk about it. So these are the steps forward in that, and I appreciate you guys putting this together. So.
And thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. One of the things during testimony that came out is the enthusiasm out of Sheridan and the burgeoning industry and actually production facilities that may come out of this, let alone what's already happening in Teton County, in Jackson. And I would say some of the committee members on Travel Rec and Wildlife are very conservative members of the Republican Party. And one of the key issues with them is increased revenues. And one of the things out of moving the lodging tax to the statewide lodging tax, that gets tourism off the general fund. And that was a key mover in this legislation and moving the bill forward. In particular, I happen to sit next to Senator Salazar, and he's very supportive, and Fremont County is, and Du Bois is where the Wells Fargo, the horses and stagecoach and all of that is actually housed, and those folks are key vendors and work on movies. But anyway, it doesn't increase the general fund, and this is really will be paid for out of the lodging tax, and in turn drives economic development and diversity in the state. So thanks for being progressive, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Councilman Nell.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Ms. Kaufman, this is for you. Through your incentive program, if the state was to sunset this again and not move forward with it, but we do on a local level, how difficult is it to ascertain those funds that are available through the lodging tax to facilitate what we're wanting to do?
That's a great question. So right now, it's not Visit Casper's intention to be able to offer financial incentives. Our intention is to be able to say, we want to help organize and get you where you're going and get you through the process as best we can. So our budget, right, even now at this point, wouldn't allow for a tax incentive in the millions.
I think you misunderstood me.
Okay.
The film incentive program that you are talking about starting.
The film and the commission here
Correct.
locally, right?
Will they not be able to access the funds from the state level without their blessing, or can we?
We would just pair projects with those incentive funds. We would not be the recipient of them.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But you can get them the funds, I guess is what I'm asking.
We would work
Funds
with
are
the,
available
yeah,
to you.
we would work, yeah.
Even
sorry.
if the state doesn't approve this, those funds are still available for you to help them get.
The funds are only going to be distributed right now through the Office of Tourism. So we do not have control of those funds. We would try to connect projects with those funds.
Gotcha.
Good question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Manager, do you want to summarize the direction that you're looking for?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I guess that would be twofold, really. First of all, should council have the desire to be a partner in the development of this initiative on a local level, the resolution would need to be approved by this group, on the floor, stating that effect. Secondly, staff really needs to get to work as it relates to streamlining our processes internally, working with our partners, getting those relationships tuned up so that indeed we can bring forward to you an event policy guide, if you will, related to this industry that you give us the blessing for, so that as these projects start to come online, we've already got your blessing in terms of things that need to be done, and we don't need to come back over and over and over again if this event policy effort is successful. And so that'd be the two things I would ask for.
Okay, so we're looking for a thumbs up or a thumbs down on moving forward with the event policy guide and our involvement. Okay?
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Okay, we'll move on to in-kind support Christmas parade. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We have the opportunity to hear from the sponsoring agency, potentially consortium of agencies, with regard to support from the city for this year's Christmas parade. As you all know, that takes place after Thanksgiving, primarily in the downtown, and is one that has gone on for a number of years. Having done so generally, it's with the partnership of the city providing in-kind support. And you are all probably aware of what that involves. It involves support from the police department, particularly from public services as well, with respect to trash that we generally need to police and blocking off streets, et cetera. They are here this evening to talk about that in-kind support. And just for your purposes, the full cost of that support from an in-kind perspective, again, is just about $3,000. Again, that includes the services that I mentioned to you just a couple minutes ago. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, if I could defer the floor to our partner agencies in this effort, I'd be pleased to do so.
Okay.
Hello, Council and Mr. Mayor. My name is Jenna Jensen, and I'm here on behalf of the Casper Area Chamber of Commerce. As you may or may not know, the Christmas parade has changed hands lately, and it is now going to be produced by the Casper Chamber of Commerce. We are here today to ask for an in-kind support of city services for 100%. We cannot put this parade on without that help. However, at this point, we do realize that we are outside of the application process, but going forward, we vow that we will do the right channels. So please consider awarding us that.
Councilman Gamros.
Thank you, Jenna, for being here and speaking with us this evening. And agreed, ideally, we would go through community promotions channel, but I understand this year with, you know, the agency that's organizing it, changing hands and stuff, it's, you know, difficult to do in a year like this. I am curious, with the Chamber of Commerce now taking it over, was private sponsorship explored with any of the chamber members or otherwise? I'm just curious if we reached out to any private business in the area to see if they'd like to sponsor it with, you know, some, obviously some advertising and stuff like that.
Yeah, most certainly. That is the plan with the Chamber of Commerce. We haven't gotten to that point yet. This just recently happened last week. And so we're forming a plan to do some outreach on that. Prior to that, the DCBA did have a Spirit of Christmas letter, and they did get a little bit of support, but was not even anything close to covering the cost of the Christmas parade.
Okay, thank you. I may have a follow-up.
Oh, great. No, I'm just kidding.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. Thanks, Jenna, for coming. Appreciate it. So you just kind of figured out last week you're taking over and everything. So yeah, I mean, I'm 100% supportive of this from this standpoint. I think, you know, it's understanding. I think Carter, he's given us a nod that we understand this, and it's a thumbs up for me. And obviously, I think if you guys do it again next year, you'll know the process, which I think we can be a little flexible on that. So I'm going to support it. I think it's good. It's an in-kind contribution, which I'm always 100% behind for in-kind contributions. This is for, you know, downtown city stuff, so I'm 100% behind that. So thanks, appreciate it.
Councilman Nell.
Thank you. Carter, this question's for you. I know we have $83 left in that budget, and they're asking for $3,000. So my question is, and you stated in our piece here that those funds could be transferred from other programs. Can you tell us which programs those would be and where this money would come from?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, what I would recommend is we look at those dollars either through programmatic aspects of your budget, the council budget, where I'm sure $3,000 would not be impossible to find. But furthermore, if council would prefer, we have some 1-cent dollars as well that could be applied in this regard, and that would not be out of line with regard to how community promotions is typically funded. So we've got a couple options. Thankfully, this number is not that big.
Carter, was this parade on the community promotions by, not by the chamber, but by who was running it? Is it on there now?
Mr. Mayor, it did not make it during the regular routine, but the downtown Christmas parade is a typical feature of community promotions.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. So you're looking for direction on whether to give this or not. So moving forward with it. Okay,
Thank you.
got to apply next year. All right, we'll move on to the Employee Voluntary Vaccine Incentive Program, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is a conversation that is not unfamiliar to you now. We had our part one, I guess you'd say, sort of an introduction of the idea during the pre-meeting last week. Council asked that this information be taken under advisement and given some time to think about and consider to bring back this evening for potential direction, possibly one way or the other. And so we are back again tonight to ask for your consideration of the idea, the program, and just to be in the spirit of refreshing the idea just a touch. The idea is that folks who get vaccinated in the organization will receive a $250 incentive by virtue of dollars that are available through the health department. We are also suggesting that that be extended to dependents who haven't been vaccinated as well, albeit at a smaller amount to fit in the guidelines that the state provides in terms of that reimbursement. And so if indeed we receive, achieve a 65% vaccination rate within the organization, we believe that the city's exposure from an out-of-pocket standpoint through the CARES fund that you established last year, those dollars would amount to $124,000, and that would be after the health fund would reimburse the city for those costs that would potentially be eligible. And so without a doubt, there's a lot of ways we can go with this, but that's the bottom line sort of idea that we presented to you last week. And we are certainly available to answer any other questions tonight. Do more homework if you'd prefer, or you can send us back to the drawing board as well.
Councilman Nell.
Thank you. So this thing's been politicized as far as it can go. However, a lot of my constituents in my particular ward reached out to me over the since the last meeting when we spoke about this, and including some folks from the Republican committee, which some of us are members of, and they're vehemently against using tax dollars for this purpose. Every one of them. I didn't have one email me in support of it. I guess their feeling is it's not the government's job to protect their health. That's an individual's job. And the other issue they had that they brought up was, which I believe in, by the way, is the fact that even if, most of the people that are on the fence, $250 isn't going to change their ideology to go get this shot for $250. If they were going to get it, they probably already have it. Secondly, when they come into work, and even if you were to reach your goal of 65% vaccination, they still go home at night and they still go to the grocery stores and they go to the community events where there are unvaccinated people. And as we all know now through science, vaccinated people still carry the virus. They still get the virus. So, like I said, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but I am 100% against using taxpayer dollars to bribe or coerce someone to take a vaccine.
Councilman Gamros.
Thank you, Mayor. I would agree with Councilman Nell on his point that he made regarding some people just have their minds made up and the $250 is not going to sway them. But based on the research I read from other states, incentive programs do appear to have a short period of success initially, and then that seems to taper off. It's those people in the middle that aren't vehemently opposed. They're sitting on the fence, and this is just enough to push them over. So I'm not entirely convinced of the long-term efficacy of an incentive program, but this is only going through December anyways, my understanding. So perhaps it would achieve those short-time goals. I did appreciate the information that came from what I believe was an educational poster talking about the incentive program. It was what I was trying to inquire about last week. Councilwoman Pollock wasn't here to translate for me. But during the 5 minutes I spent incoherently ranting, what I wanted was a bit of financial impact to the city regarding the cost of not having employees vaccinated. Strange echo going on, it's throwing me off. But what it says is 28 city employees have filed for workers' compensation claims due to COVID. These claims have been paid or reserved at $281,720, largely due to the hospitalizations, and these costs will impact the city workers' compensation premiums for the next 3 years. So that was kind of what I was trying to get at last week, was what is the financial impact on our city as a result of increased sickness amongst our ranks, and so I thought that was helpful and just something for people to be considering. This has an impact outside just personal individual health, you know, people's opinions about their own personal health. This has a financial impact as well to the city and the rest of the state. Thank you.
Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you, and I wasn't here for the last discussion, but I did get up to speed on it, and I think the fact of the matter is we're seeing a significant disruption to city business as a result of positive COVID cases and people quarantining, and I think that has to be addressed. I think it's irresponsible of us not to address that somehow, because city business cannot carry on when we have significant staff issues across departments. And so I think I'm not sure that this is the most effective tool. I would suggest that we probably need more than one tool and more than one approach to this. I will support it if it is the recommendation of city staff, but I also think that there are things that need to be re-implemented here. I'm reading our own update on this, and it looks like there are group trainings happening that are potential sources of spread. I haven't seen a mask policy be re-implemented in city buildings. This room itself, when I first came on council, was, you know, multiple seats were taped off to ensure people were sitting far apart. Looks like people have done